back to the offensive coordinator situation. Been a lot of talk about Dan Mullen. Is the job Dan Mullen's if he wants it?
I'm not going to comment about the details of the search. I reached out to him a year ago, so.
Welcome in. That's how you begin Oklahoma-Bama week. Alabama coming down to the final regular season game in Norman, 6:30 on ABC, a national appearance for Oklahoma yet again. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are excited about that, getting to the New York Yankees, although that they're really good, like Red Sox level of, they're on again. I feel like that's how people out there would be. Yeah. Obviously, you out there, welcome back to SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel. Interesting comments today. Heard from Brent Venables, spent about 40 minutes with the media today, but let's start there. Obviously, the offensive coordinator talk is going to take up a bunch of time. We've spent a bunch of time talking about it, but I don't know. Certainly on the face, you would think, oh, that's not much, but I thought there was a little bit to chew off of what he had to say about Dan Mullen.
Definitely. I think that him declining to comment on Mullen, which, by the way, just shout out Dean Blevins, absolute legend with that type of question. But
giving the people what they want there.
That was great. But his comment at the end to then add that he called Dan a year ago tells us, I think, two things, Eddie. I think, number one, that he wanted to hire Dan Mullen when Jeff Lebby left.
Sure.
I think that he was somebody that obviously Brent respects, knows very well, had him speak at the OU Coaches Clinic, I believe his first year in Norman, so has a strong relationship with him. I think that he wanted to hire Dan Mullen a year ago. At least that's the indication. When Dan said no, he turns to Seth and Joe John, tries to keep a good thing going. Doesn't work, obviously. And then the second thing, that made me think, and this is more, I guess, speculation on our part, is that he's already called him this year and maybe got the same response.
Sure, a little bit of a roundabout. By the way,
yes.
Eddie Radosevich, George Stoya, don't know if we said that at the top. Welcome
the people know.
If this is your first time watching, we're in the depths of hell right now with the OU football program. Welcome in. It's a good time. I agree with you. On the surface, it does seem like that is the situation that, hey, we called him a year ago, maybe even circled back this year. Doesn't seem like the plans, but we move forward, right?
Yep.
And there are going to be some candidates. I know that you and Josh McQuistion have started going through all the candidates. We obviously had the hot board the moment that Seth Luttrell was relieved of his duties. Let's jump into the press conference because Brent Venables was asked on Tuesday, right out of the gates, what is the timeline for this offensive coordinator search that, I think that there is a sense of you need to get this done sooner rather than later, and that's what Brent Venables had to say on Tuesday.
Yeah, we've talked to several people, and so feel like we're in a good position where we need to be, and haven't put a hard deadline on it, making that decision, and doing the process. It's due diligence, and there's a lot of layers to it, as you can imagine, and I'm very sensitive to what we're trying to do here to finish out the year, give ourselves a chance to win our last two regular season games and continue to get better. And then, there's got to be a sense of urgency. And there certainly is, finding, the best solution to where we're at right now. And so, but there is a real thing called a regular season that's got to finish up. And if I'm talking to the right people, which I believe I am, then they're going to be sensitive to, finishing what they started and being loyal to their players and the people that they work alongside with, things of that nature. But sooner rather than later is when I want it finished, but I want to get it right. And so that's our focus.
Certainly seems like if you paid attention there to what Brent was saying and guys that are responsible for a team right now, it would certainly make you think that possibly whoever this next offensive coordinator is going to be is coming from another program, like he's working right now.
Yeah, and I know there's been some speculation, maybe even some reports out there that there could be news this week on who they're hiring. I don't think OU is going to officially announce anything of that sort until after the season's over.
We are in the 2 week gap here where The season's over a week from Saturday, believe
Exactly.
it or not.
But like and maybe, sometime like this week, next week, there's a sense of, okay, this is who they're targeting.
Sure.
But in terms of an official announcement and knowing exactly who it's going to be, I get the sense, and I put this on Soonerscoop.com. You can go read the latest update on the search. They're not going to announce any sort of hire until after the LSU game.
Right.
And I truly don't think that anybody has been particularly offered the job necessarily just yet. And I know that they want to have somebody hired before December 9th, which is when the portal opens, and really preferably before December 4th, which is signing day. We'll get into some of the recruiting stuff a little bit later, but they want this to happen quickly. And, there's a lot of names out there. Dan Mullen is obviously somebody that I think that they are interested in, maybe were interested in. We'll see what that is moving forward. I think Dan Mullen wants to be a head coach, and he's not going to take a job unless it's a head coaching job. That's just the sense that I get. I know that you get that sense as well, talking to folks.
Even going all the way back to him and Matt Berry were doing the
Yep.
game last week in Tulsa, which Golden Hurricane. We'll have another show for you. No, we won't. That's a lie. But don't block me again.
They're the worst.
You had it in the fourth quarter.
They're the
Neither
worst
way,
team in Oklahoma. But
Dan Mullen does the games on ESPN on Thursday nights. Talked to Jeremy Poplin, does the sideline reporting, and he's gone on the record and talking about it. He's almost like, Dan Mullen, I think he views himself as a former head coach, not somebody looking for an offense coordinator job, yada, yada, yada. It kind of leads back to some of these OC names that we've, come to know, and that kind of coincides with what Brent Venables had to say in talking about this year's offense and where it's at. And obviously historically bad, even just by college football standards. But it kind of boils down to two things that Brent talked about for me. They got to find a way to get explosive plays, and you got to certainly find a way to hold on to the football. I mean, that's the bottom line.
yeah, and when you talk about what the candidates that they're looking at, some of the names that we've heard, Ben Arbuckle at Washington State, Jake Spavital at Baylor, who's really turned around the Bears season this year, Joe Craddock at Tulane, Shannon Dawson at Miami's one that's recently come up. I don't know how much I believe that as a real candidate, but like
only if Cam Ward is coming back for a
another
6 year of
season.
eligibility.
But Miami leads almost every offensive category. But all those
Sure.
names I mentioned, you look at some of the statistics, and it's like, oh, they lead a lot of those categories, especially explosive plays.
No doubt about it. Here is Brent Venables just kind of talking about the failures that has been an Oklahoma offensive product in 2024.
Find a way to create some explosive plays these last couple of weeks. If you don't, the inability to create explosives just doesn't just go away. That puts pressure everywhere else on your football team, and that's. We've struggled offensively from an execution and a consistency, and certainly taking care of the ball, most importantly. And the smallest details always have the biggest and largest consequences. And when we've taken care of the football, we've won 5 games, and we've outscored people 63-6. And when we've lost our 5 games, we've been outscored 58-7 in the turnover margin. So, recipe for both winning and losing, just take care of the ball and continue to improve. And when you take care of the ball, again, good things will usually happen. We know we've been historically inefficient and ineffective on offense, so I won't even talk about that, but we have gotten a little bit better. Some players have gotten better the last several weeks, and we've been a little more efficient and given ourselves a chance. If we just take care of the ball, we'd have a chance to win every game that we play, and along with creating some explosive plays. You can't, with the types of teams that we're playing, you have to be able to do that to put yourself in a position to win. So,
it's interesting when you're talking about explosive plays. I think that there's one name that we've become quite keen on around the scoop offices, Ben Arbuckle, and what he's been able to do at Washington State. You dug up the numbers. You can go all the way back to his first year when he was an offense coordinator at Western Kentucky. That has kind of been known. I think the Hilltoppers offensively have been extremely good over the last, it seems like better part of the last decade, but certainly the last 4 or 5 years. 98 plays over 20 yards or more that led the country in 2022. This year, you fast forward and you go six nationally in plays over 20 yards or more. 64, just to give you an idea. Oklahoma 27, and over 30 yards or more. They've had 33 plays at Washington State this year under Ben Arbuckle. That's 4th in the country.
Yeah, I mean, he's produced at a high level, and I would say right now he's a very strong candidate. Now, he's somebody that is really young, 29 years old.
29 years old.
He's only been calling plays for 3 years. He comes from the air raid tree. He's a guy, I believe Zach Kitley was kind of his mentor, who's now the offensive coordinator at Texas Tech. He played the position, quarterback position that is, which I think is a kind of a selling point for Oklahoma right now.
Yeah.
Is from Texas, so he kind of has some ties down in this area. Doesn't have any SEC experience, which I know is somewhat a point of criteria for Oklahoma, but he checks a lot of boxes, and I think he's definitely somebody that people should get familiar with over these next couple of weeks, and we'll see if he ends up being the guy. I don't know. Like I said, I don't really know who is the leading candidate, but I do know that he's somebody they're very interested in.
Much like Jake Spavital at Baylor, much like Joe Craddock at Tulane. He also has a quarterback that has turned it up pretty well this year, John Mateer. He's been fun to watch. I watched a little bit of the New Mexico game. They ended up getting beat, which whatever. But we won't hold that against him, or maybe we will after the fail.
I think Mateer threw 4 touchdowns in that game.
Yeah, like he was really good. Threw a go-ahead touchdown with I think under a minute left, or just over a minute left to give Washington State the lead. They threw it up all over themselves. Neither here nor there. It's certainly going to be interesting. I think these next 2 weeks are going to really tell the tale. And then obviously you have the transfer portal opening on December 9th, which leads us into the Jackson Arnold discussion. He's the presumed starter going into Saturday night. I guess there was a little bit of a question mark about that, but it certainly seems like Jackson's going to be the guy. Before we get into some of the stuff that Brent Venables had to say on Jackson Arnold, as well as Jackson Arnold himself talking to the media on Monday night after practice, let us tell you about our good friends over at homefieldapparel.com. Been wearing the hoodies around a little bit more now that the weather's getting a little bit cooler out, which is welcome news. All you got to do is go to homefieldapparel.com, 15% off your first order using the promo code SCOOP. That is homefieldapparel.com, 15% off using your first order, or 15% off your first order using the promo code SCOOP. Got the Oklahoma Disco Dad hat out. I'm sure there's a lot of people that are interested in that. A lot of stocking stuffers here.
I hope my dad's not watching, because that's probably going to be his Christmas present right there.
I like that. Well, all right. Yeah, scroll back down a little bit, Kerry. $36. I think Sam Stoya is worth a little bit more than $36. Just $36.
I don't know.
Good deal, though, and you probably get a little bit of an incentive base here using the promo code SCOOP. On your first order, you get 15% off. Plenty of stuff, though. Got the Campus Classic pullover, which obviously hit the shelves on October 24th. I've been scrolling through. Even, all the OU stuff is fantastic, but Home Field's just kind of the go-to site for any college throwback stuff. The vintage stuff rocks. Great. Homefieldapparel.com, 15% off your first order using the promo code SCOOP. It's been great to have Home Field Apparel with SoonerScoop.com for basically the entire season here in 2024. One of the bright spots in the season that hasn't had a whole lot of bright spots. Let's dig back in. I feel like we need a little gas mask and then put them on when you go back into the rubble. But Jackson Arnold, obviously going to be the start. That wasn't a very good, welcomed. That was just kind of yeah, it is what it is. Hold on to the football. Yeah. He is a captain this week. And, does that lead you to think that, maybe there's something more there? He is certainly a leader on the offensive side of the football. Is it something more? Is he going to be coming back in 2025? That question still remains.
Yeah, it's really hard to predict. I think a lot of people think he's just going to leave. I think we just don't know. I think some of it depends on, the offensive coordinator situation, and, does that offensive coordinator want Jackson Arnold to be the quarterback, right? Like we mentioned, some of those guys that have quarterbacks at their current schools, if they're bringing that quarterback with them, does Jackson want to stay in, compete with that quarterback? And also, would that quarterback want to come and, to a position where they would be competing for a job? I would assume that they would be told, hey, you're going to be the starting quarterback at Oklahoma, right? And so does Jackson want to be a backup? Probably not. So it's a very interesting situation. Again, that's all speculation. Sure. We don't know if that's going to happen, but it's just become the narrative now. Is like, what is Jackson Arnold's future at Oklahoma? Is there a future at Oklahoma? But I think the one thing we can say about Jackson is that he's done his due diligence in terms of sticking with this team, continuing to be a leader, because I know a lot of people were, saying how could Jackson be a captain for this week's game? That's voted on by the players. Like that's a weekly vote, I believe, from the players. And so that tells you what the guys in the locker room still think of Jackson, despite
100%.
a lot of the miscues that he's had this season.
No doubt. It's a senior-laden group. Danny
Yep.
Stutzman, Billy Bowman, Woody Washington, Ethan Downs, Troy Everett, and Jackson Arnold named starters on Tuesday. Barry Trammell asked Brent Venables, is there anything to kind of read into Jackson Arnold being a captain going into the Alabama game?
Brent, I saw you, along with the veterans like Danny and Billy and Ethan, you got Jackson as a captain for this game. Is that a sign of the next two games that he's your guy going forward in these next two games, but also for next season and his desire to be back next season?
Well, it's a sign of, and I don't know what the future holds. We love Jackson, and we believe in him. But it's a sign of he's one of our best leaders that we have on the team. And, there's plenty of guys going through rough spots that still have the ability to lead and fight and compete. And so that goes along with, that position as well. But representing, the offensive side of the ball, those are two of our best leaders, and Troy Everett and Jackson Arnold.
Certainly matches up. I mean, I don't think that's any surprise, but we did talk to Jackson on Monday night. You asked him straight up, like, what's your future looking like in Norman? And here's Jackson Arnold's answer.
Jackson, you mentioned blocking out the noise. The noise around you right now outside of here is your future here and everything that goes into that in today's college football world. How have you been able to block that out maybe in that narrative, and have you given any thought to your future here?
I don't look at anything ever. I stay in my lane, I stay focused. I have Snapchat, so I talk to my friends, talk to my family, call them, and talk to my girlfriend. But other than that, I don't go on any social media. And regarding my future, we got two great teams left that we got to go against. I'm just taking it week by week.
Got to be careful on the Snapchats. Quinn Ewers knows about that, Georgie. And you need to be careful on the Snapchats.
I don't have Snapchat.
Okay, good. That's.
I feel like I'm getting
We
too
have
old
that
for
wrote down.
Snapchat.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. What'd you make of that? I think it is a big question mark, though, and I don't think that we necessarily got any type of answer there, but it certainly is. It's out there, and it's something that is going to be out there until you get to the end of the road here.
I think he genuinely doesn't know what his future holds.
And that's fine. He's going to want to know who the offensive coordinator is.
Right. I think deep down in a perfect world, of course, he'd want to be the quarterback in Oklahoma.
Sure.
He committed here. He stayed even when Jeff Lebby left. He continued to work when he got benched. Like, he's faced a lot of adversity now, in his time at Oklahoma. I think he'd like to stay. Is that going to be a reality? I don't know. I'm a little skeptical of it just because of the way this season's gone. I think Oklahoma's probably going to be looking for a fresh start in a lot of places on that side of the football, including at quarterback. When you look at how poor the play has been, whether it's been Jackson or Michael Hawkins, it just feels like Oklahoma is probably going to go in a different direction. I just don't know. I don't think Jackson knows.
And who knows? I mean, you go out, you throw for 450 on Saturday or something, out of this world, something that hasn't happened this season. We're having a much different conversation here when we rejoin on, Saturday night for the instant reaction.
And again, who they hire, they could hire Ben Arbuckle and he could be like, I love Jackson Arnold. Sure. Like, I want Jackson Arnold to be my quarterback or whatever it is. I have no idea. Or a Joe Craddock or whoever they end up hiring at offensive coordinator, they could easily come in and say, hey, I want Jackson. I want Jackson here. I want to try and develop him. I want him to see that he can be the player that everybody thinks he can be.
We talked about it with the players on, I guess, basically for the last 2 weeks, really going into the bye week. We talked about, what's left to play for. It certainly seems like the senior group, which, is going to be honored before the game on Saturday night, the Don Key Award and all that kind of stuff. It is a monumental moment for a number of these guys. We'll talk about it on the game day preview. And, we talk about Billy Bowman and Danny Stutzman, Woody Washington, Ethan Downs, who Jackson Arnold said might be one of the best leaders he's literally, truly ever been around in a football program. Those guys, obviously, they've paid their price, I guess, if you want. It does strike me in a certain way, too, that when you remember all these guys, they come to Oklahoma, and for so long, if you were here for 4 years, you almost assuredly had won a Big 12 championship. None of these guys have won anything. So I do think that, like, from a mental standpoint, this is kind of like, and I guess this is kind of just shows you how slowly this thing trickled away this year. This is like a Super Bowl type game for you if you want to get bowl eligible over the next 2 weeks against Alabama and LSU.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, these guys want to extend their careers. Now, some of these guys, like I don't even know if they made a bowl game if Danny or Billy would play in the game. But
I've been thinking about that in the back of my head. I would think probably not. Brent Venables did say on Tuesday that both Danny Stutzman and Billy Bowman have not only been invited, but they've accepted invitations to the Senior Bowl.
Yeah, and I think Ethan Downs could still get one as well.
Deserves one.
Yes, and a lot of times they send out the first batch of them, and they send out a couple other batches later on. So wouldn't be shocked if Ethan Downs got one as well. But I think that there's a lot of the guys on this team that this season certainly has not gone the way that they'd hoped, and even really their careers, I would say, haven't gone the way they hoped. But if you could pull off a stunner against Alabama at home, I think that would wouldn't make up for everything, but I think it would make you feel a heck of a lot better if you were able to go on the road and beat an LSU team.
A lasting memory, too, if you could do it on Saturday.
It'd be awesome.
All right, back to reality. that was a little bit of a fantasy land talk for a second. We'll see. The message to recruits. Obviously, it's out there. We taped the Recruiting Rewind coming off of the weekend with Josh McQuistion on Monday afternoon. By Monday evening, it starts circulating out there that Michael Fasusi, the prize 5-star commitment, currently is possibly thinking about going to Austin this weekend for the Texas-Kentucky game, maybe even A&M for the A&M-Texas game in 2 weeks. And it was point blank. You asked Brent Venables, what is the situation? What are you telling recruits right now, specifically on the offensive side of the ball? What can be done right now? What can be said that you need to hear?
I don't know because I think they're in a really tough selling point part, right? Like I think that you look at it from all the different angles, and it's like, well, the season hasn't gone the way it's supposed to. You don't know who's going to be on the staff next year. I think they'd like to keep Bill Beatenbow as the offensive line coach next season. But, if you go hire an offensive coordinator and they want to bring in their own guy, I don't know how you tell that person no, right?
Sure.
So I'm sure that recruits on that side of the ball specifically are wondering, okay, is my position coach going to be here next year? Are they going to get any better on that side of the ball? I mean, it can't get much worse, right? So I think it's a really tough selling point right now for Oklahoma. And when you look at Michael Fasusi, Eddie, and I would love to get Josh's take on this on the unofficial 40 tomorrow, but just how big of a loss that could be.
Monumental.
I mean,
massive.
He is the prized, the crown jewel of the class, if you will.
And if not for the obvious that's there with, physically what he would bring to the program, the idea that he could be somebody that is projected to be a, first round NFL talent. When you even get past all that, there is an optics factor that plays into recruiting as well. And I think more so nowadays, it seems like that's almost even bigger than actually getting the kid and developing him.
Well, and Eddie, it'd be one thing to lose. You don't want to lose him in any fashion. If he was going to like Michigan,
you could stomach it.
You could stomach it a little bit more. But the fact that it's your rival, or at least an A&M that is also somewhat of a rival in the same conference as you, that's tough.
Yeah.
And so I think that Oklahoma's likely trying to do everything it can to keep Fasusi, I would assume, whether that be the recruiting pitch, Bill Beatenbow trying to keep him on staff, NIL money. Like, I think all of those things are in play these next couple weeks with Michael Fasusi. But I basically was asking about Fasusi without asking about him today because obviously Brent can't talk about specific recruits. And he gave an answer that was, I feel like, directed at Michael Fasusi.
Here it is.
Well, again, we've discussed that in here just in regards to who we've been our first 2 years here. We're a top 10 team, top 5 in several categories. We've been incredibly explosive. We've been a very attractive offense for skill, for offensive line development. Nobody's done it better than Coach Beatenbow. He's got an amazing track record at the very highest level, both in college and guys' opportunity to go to the NFL and play and be prepared to play at a really high level. But again, between running backs and our skill guys and the quarterback play, it's been outstanding. This year, it hasn't represented our standard in any way, shape, or form. There's been incredible disappointment, and you don't have a lot of excuses that are great for it. But I do think our guys recognize, recruits recognize that, hey man, that we've got several guys that haven't been out there that would be very productive for us, from an injury standpoint. And it also, hey, man, what a great opportunity this is to go to a place like Oklahoma that's got a top 10 defense, got great special teams units. Now, if we can get it just a little bit better, get healthy on offense, I can come in and contribute, because we're talking about a group of recruits that are very highly thought of, highly sought after. These are guys that have a great opportunity to come in and help make us better. We played 7,044 snaps of freshmen and sophomores through our first 10 games of the season. So, we've shown the willingness to play young players, not only to play them, come in and be starters. And we've had several guys that have been able to do that. Or when they've gotten in the game as true freshmen, they've come in and played really, really well, whether that's defense or that's offense or that's in the kicking game as well. So great opportunity is what I would say, and believing in people. And this is a staff that's a championship staff, a staff that's had success at the highest level for a long time. And so when you look at a body of work, there's more reasons to support their original decision than not in choosing Oklahoma, knowing that they're going to have a great future.
It will be just the 7th time that Oklahoma and Alabama have played, and just the 3rd time on a campus coming up on Saturday. Kind of crazy. 2002, 2003, we're in Norman and Tuscaloosa. OU
Sugar
obviously
Bowl.
won those, and then a bunch of bowl games and stuff like that. OU leads the all-time series 3-2-1. A little bit of some notes for you there out of the notes package. Thank you to Mike Hauk and company. OU's also won each of its last 9 home finales. So senior day, Oklahoma's won the last 9 consecutive, and they've won 21 of the last 22 senior days.
Got to keep it going.
Do you know what the one loss is?
Oklahoma State in 2014.
2001 Oklahoma State. I don't believe that
2014 wasn't a...
I guess not a finale, at least.
There's
Excuse me. It's only lost in the home finale of a season since 2001 came in 2014. So you're correct.
Yeah.
And I apologize and beg of your mercy, and God help my soul. How about that?
One important note.
Yeah.
If we want to stay on Fasusi just real quick.
Yeah.
I thought Brent's answer about the no visit policy, which is pretty well documented, the policy of once you commit, you don't take any more visits. And if you do, then, Brent basically doesn't see you as committed anymore. That was asked, if that's still a policy that Brent has, and Brent said yes. Like that has not changed. So I would assume if, Michael Fasusi goes to Texas this weekend, which it seems like that's going to happen, in Oklahoma's eyes, they would view Michael Fasusi as not committed. Now, he did also clarify that doesn't mean that he's pulling their offer. And obviously they would still take Michael Fasusi if he goes on that Texas visit and goes, actually, I'm okay. I want to still go to Oklahoma. I don't think that's going to happen. But he was pretty adamant today, I would say, going back and forth with John Hoover about that.
And it just goes back into the conversation that we had on Monday with Josh, just in terms of, I do think that this is a situation, if Bill Beatabo ends up coming back, maybe you have a better chance than not because of the relationship that has been built there. And, certainly when you hear Brent Venables talk about Bill and the way that he's been able to develop, and, we don't need to rehash everything. Everybody has a feeling about Bill Beatabo. You're going to either be on the side that you think he needs to come back because he's doing a really good job, or the side that you want him to hit town. Like, I don't think that people are going to be talked out of that one way or the other and how they feel.
No, and I just, I was telling you before we came on here, it does seem like the way Brent's talked about Bill in recent weeks that he would like to keep him. Now, if he loses this class, which we've talked a ton about, is the best offensive line class that Oklahoma's had in a long time. If he loses this class, who knows, right? Because I do think that is a part of the equation in wanting to keep him.
No doubt about it. All right, we'll be back on Thursday for the game day preview, talking everything Alabama. There was a little bit of talk about Alabama.
I think it's funny. Huge game this week. Obviously, when a top 10 team comes in,
Sure.
I think he got one question about Alabama today.
And like at the end of the day, it's OU Alabama.
I know.
Like it's an
crazy.
awesome matchup, even though, on paper and what you would think going into the game on Saturday night, probably not lining up with when this game was announced or, all the way back in August. So there it is. That's your practice report after catching up with Brent Venables on Tuesday. We'll be back right here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube channel for the unofficial 40 on Wednesday afternoon. For George Stoya, I'm Eddie Radosevich. We'll see you next time.